Hello.
Hi, teacher.
How
How
are you?
are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good.
Uh, uh, Brian,
Yes.
um, I have a letter and USCS sent to me,
Mm-hmm.
and I have for citizenship interview November 23rd at 11 o'clock.
November 23rd. Oh,
Yes,
week of Thanksgiving.
yeah,
Oh, so
before Thanksgiving. Boss, I am so happy, but I'm nervous, I'm worried, and I just scared small talk.
small talk. I wouldn't be worried about small talk.
Small talk, they tell,
Hmm.
they talk to me and COVID, and I okay. And 50, the question, yes or no, maybe I'm okay. And what you mean? Maybe I'm okay, maybe 80%. And 100 question, maybe right now I study hard, maybe I
Hmm.
99%,
Oh,
but I don't
good.
know what I worry.
um, it's the interview is hard because you can't prepare for that.
Yes.
Um, Let me check something.
A teacher before and I
Mhm.
watch I watch in YouTube, and
Yes.
a lot stay, and they post and typical interview, but I don't know in I want in state in Connecticut, and they have a YouTube and typical in the interview, but I don't see it. You how you know, and you can let me help me.
I think. Let me see. Immigration interview. Let's see. Um, let's see if I can find something.
I think different state, and they ask different the small talk and something for outside inside. I don't know, but I
Mhm.
wanna watch it in YouTube and in Connecticut.
I think. I think the interviews are pretty similar in the different states because the questions are the same because it's from the government, not in
Ye-
Connecticut, but in Washington.
Yes.
So that part is easier. Let me see. Um, let's see. I'm looking at this. Uh, so what it looks like is going to happen is they're just going to talk to you, and it will be about any topic.
Yes.
So, it could be about a movie you saw or a TV show. Um, I'm looking right now at what they said about citizenship interview. Hello,
Hi,
how are you?
Hi.
I'm fine. How are you guys?
You in the
I'm
car?
I'm good.
Yes.
Let's see. English. I was given. Let's see what this says. Paper that cannot be made. During the interview, she asked a lot of questions about my children. Um, yeah, it's going to be questions about um, where you come from, what it was like, what your favorite show is, what you like about America, that kind of stuff. Um, I think I think even though it's harder and you can't prepare for the interview, I think the interview is actually easier because you don't have to memorize anything.
Mm-mm.
You just have to have a conversation. They're going to ask you questions about who you are, who you're married to, your family, um, if you have a job. So, like basic questions, kind of like what we would ask you at when you register for classes, kind of in that way, but it's going to be longer.
Yeah.
Maybe about, uh, I think could be like 30 minutes to 45 minutes of talking. And what they want to do there is see your English level. Um,
Yeah.
they want to see, can you function in English? And I think you're a pretty good level of English.
No, but I think it's easy,
Hmm.
the communicate or easy the question I understand and I can answer, but hard, difficult for question and I can
Hmm.
hear they talk fast. I
Oh, yes.
don't understand.
So, one good thing to do is if they're talking too fast,
Yes,
um, you could just ask, "Oh, I didn't get that. Could you repeat?"
yes,
Um, it's better to ask for repeat than
yes, I know.
for to answer a question you don't understand.
Yeah,
Um, with the citizenship test, I'm going to look at. So I put in the classroom the questions. I'm gonna see if I could find a study, uh, a website where you can use to study the questions.
yeah,
There are some good sites out there. I just gotta find it.
yeah.
Um,
I hope if you can looking for the line and you can help me and send a line to me. Okay.
mhm. I'll
Yeah.
put
Thank you
I'll,
so much.
I'll put information in Google Classroom, and you'll see um, you'll see a website that I find for practicing the questions. Um, I'll see if I can find something for like practice interview questions, and um, I think I think you'll be good.
Teacher, I application for paper December 2019.
Okay, so
Yeah, that right now maybe more one month and 1 year. I
that's actually
application and maybe they still a long time 11 month.
I think
Yes,
after the exam, it's actually it goes faster. Um, if you'll get a letter
yes,
either saying you did good, or we're gonna think about it and we'll contact you again, or you have to do come back again. So
yeah.
it's one of three possibilities. Um, I'm I know what it's like in New York. New York, they're very quick. They do very fast interviews because they have a lot of people in New York.
But how you know over here in Connecticut, in Hartford?
I haven't worked with people who've used Hartford
Yes,
because before I was in New York City and everyone used the Manhattan branch.
yes,
And the stories I hear about Manhattan was one day someone had a 5 minute interview. The next day someone had 45-minute interview.
yeah,
So it can depend. I know Manhattan was a little crazy,
yes,
but I think Connecticut will probably be a little nicer where it's not crazy where you don't know if it's going to be very fast or very long.
yes. Depend on them.
Yeah.
Thank you, teacher. And
So, what we were doing last time was we were going over the Bill of Rights and we got to the Seventh Amendment. So, a lot of our first 10 amendments, about maybe three, four, maybe even five, are about what happens if you get arrested, if you go to trial. These are actually some of the most important rights we have, but also the rights we don't want to use. So, the Seventh Amendment starts with your right to a trial. So, it is your right as a actually not even as an American citizen, every person in America, citizen or not citizen, has the right to a jury. So, juries may be used in a civil case. Now, a civil case is a lawsuit, and if you're being sued or you're suing someone, you can ask for a jury. Or if both parties agree, you can have just a judge. So it's jury or judge. And this is for civil cases. So that's a lot of spinning. A civil case is any case that involves money and it's not a crime. So it's always about money, and you sometimes from civil cases you can change the law. Not usually. So the original rule was a civil case must be for over $20. Now, back 250 years ago, $20 was a lot of money. Now, $20 is a little money.
yeah,
So, oh, sorry about that. So, in civil cases now, if it's under $2,000, you go to what's called small claims court. Most people are familiar with small claims court because if you watch TV and you see Judge Judy or one of those shows where they have a judge and they're people fighting about money, it's usually for under $2,000. In a small claims court, you don't have a jury because the money is too small. So, next, the Eighth Amendment. The Eighth Amendment is about bail and punishment. Bail is the money needed to release from jail until trial. The rule is you cannot have excessive bail. Excessive means too much. So, um, the idea is if you um, if you're a poor person, it needs to be an amount of money you can pay. So they can't say $1 million unless you did something very, very, very bad. So typically, you'll see bail at, let me see. When I went to court in was it January? In January, some of the bails we heard was 10,000 to I think it was 50,000.
50,
But
a lot of money.
it is a lot of money. But you only need to pay 10%. So 10%,
5,000.
yep, 1,000, 5,000. So the idea is if you give $1,000 plus you sign a paper, if you don't come back to court, they will go and take your house and sell it and take the money from that.
Yeah.
So most people who are normal working people, um, they have no problem with bail. Rich people who have lots of money, they're the ones that will leave. So those people typically they either do remand without bail um, or they get very high bails, like $1 million, $2 million, or 10 million. I think I've seen once.
I hear the Huawei in China. The girl, people take class in in Canada. Maybe she bail a lot of money.
Hmm.
Huawei. Huawei.
Um, I don't think I know.
The girl people take class in Canada.
Hmm.
But he worked a government in China. He sell a lot of things and to get the contact to get with Iran.
Hmm.
Huawei. I don't know, but here what they pronounce, but I think I pronounce Huawei.
Oh, wait. Let me see if I can find it on internet.
Company Huawei.
Oh, Huawei. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Huawei. Yes. I know Huawei. um, okay. So that is the next part is it prohibits cruel and unusual punishment. So if you steal bread, your punishment should not be jail for 20 years. That's cruel and unusual. It's basically not nice. So, our Eighth Amendment protects you from getting a cruel punishment, like death penalty, being put to death for small crimes. All right. So, the Ninth Amendment says all other rights not stated in the Constitution are retained by the people. So, are kept by the people. So, This one says it tells the government they cannot tell you the only rights you have are in the Bill of Rights. You can get more rights. Um, they can add amendments. So this says the government cannot stop you from getting rights. You can go to court and get them, or Congress can pass a law to give you rights. Okay?
Yeah.
Then the 10th Amendment says um, it gives states all the powers that are not directly given to the national government. So this is the rights of states. When you hear people talk about states' rights, they're
Yes.
usually talking about the 10th Amendment. It says if the government if the federal government does not have a law about it, you can make a law about it. If Connecticut thinks that we should not sell alcohol on Sundays, which was the law, Connecticut can do that. Connecticut changed that law because people in Connecticut did not like that. Okay? So, there are more amendments. There are 17 more because the first 10 wasn't enough. And that makes sense. So, the 11th Amendment is suits against a state. So, this places limits on lawsuits against states. A lawsuit brought by a citizen of the U.S. or a foreign nation against a state must be tried in state court. So, an example would be if Brian wants to sue the state of Connecticut because CT took my land, we must go to state court first. And then from there, we go up and up and up. So, um, the states do get sued a lot. Um, you can sue a state if the state does something wrong to you, and it's usually has to do with money or property. They take part of your land to build a road. You can sue to get paid for that land, and that's pretty much what most lawsuits are against the state government. I forgot to put on my subtitles. And let me put it in English. There we go. All right. So, the 12th Amendment is about the election of the president, which, how many more weeks do we have until Election Day?
November 3rd.
November 3rd.
Yeah, maybe
Maybe 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
3 weeks? Exactly 3
No.
weeks.
Yeah.
3 weeks.
Wow, too fast.
I know. It's going very fast.
Wow.
So, normally in an election year, the last 3 weeks about are considered the positive weeks. So The candidates are usually very nice. They talk about good things. They don't normally attack the other candidates, but this year's different. We have a very different election. But another thing that we usually have is what's called the October surprise. Now, the October surprise is a big news story about a candidate. It's also usually very damaging. It's usually very bad. So this is considered, oops, the October surprise is usually the final attack against a candidate. So in 2016, we had a few October surprises. We had Trump's
Be president?
no,
No.
it was his Access Hollywood tape where he said some not polite things about women. We had the Clinton WikiLeaks scandal where they released emails that Hillary Clinton wrote. And the final one, which was a big surprise, was the FBI announcing possible crimes against Clinton. This was a big one. This was the big one last time. Because the FBI had a press conference. They talked about Hillary Clinton. Did she break the law? And then he ended up saying he didn't really say anything. But people say this hurt Hillary Clinton a lot. So this is what I mean by it's very damaging. It could make it impossible for someone to live. Well, not live. I mean, win the election. So that was just some interesting stuff that we're going to hear. So let's talk about the 12th Amendment. So this revises procedures for electing the president and vice president. So it used to be that you would vote for the president and you vote for the vice president. We don't do that anymore. We changed that. But the 12th Amendment made it so that you can vote on which vice president you like. It prohibits electors from voting for two candidates, president and vice president, from their state. So that means people from New York couldn't vote for Trump. Again, the 12th Amendment was changed because we don't do this anymore. So we're going to move on to what's called the Civil War Amendments. These are also the amendments that deal with African Americans, Black people, and slavery. So the 13th Amendment was the abolition of slavery, the cancellation of slavery. It made it illegal. It freed thousands of African Americans from slavery. And I'm actually going to look up, did the 13th Amendment free? So it freed the last slaves in the US, which was between 65,000 to 100,000. This is after the Emancipation Proclamation by Abraham Lincoln.
It's free the slave.
hmm So this amendment made sure all slaves everywhere in the U.S. were free. So it outlawed, this means make illegal, any sort of forced labor. So any type of slavery, except punishment for a crime. So technically in the US, there still is slavery when you're in jail or prison. So this was the first of the um, uh, civil rights amendments. The 14th Amendment is for civil rights. So this is the first time a U.S. citizen was defined. So it is now defined as anyone born or naturalized in the U.S. So if Oot passes her test, she will be naturalized. If anyone who is born in the US are automatically citizens.
Yes.
So this included most African Americans. It also said there must be equal protection of the laws, that the government must treat all citizens equally, black or white or Asian or Indian or native. So, and I think it forbids the state government from interfering with the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. This means states cannot pass laws that take away anyone's rights. So you now have rights. The state cannot take it away from you now. And then finally, we have the first of the suffrage laws. Suffrage means the right to vote. So the first group of people given the right to vote after the Constitution was written were black men. So women still could not vote. Um, Native Americans, could not vote. And people under, I believe it's 21, could not vote. So you could see there are future suffrage laws coming, suffrage amendments. But African Americans were given the right to vote. Unfortunately, they did not follow this law of the 14th Amendment. So many states passed laws making it very difficult for Black people to vote. So later on, we're going to have more laws to protect people's rights to vote. So, women, both black and white, were not allowed to vote until 1920. So, 100 years ago, women were first allowed to vote. Unfortunately, this was unsuccessful. As I mentioned before, people found legal ways to keep Black people from voting, including a poll tax. So at this time, many Black people were very poor because they just left slavery, so they don't have much money. And needing to pay money to vote made it very difficult. There are other ways. They stopped people from voting. There was also a literacy test, which was a test of any kind where if you fail, you can't vote. And they would ask very, very hard questions that most people could not answer. So they would do that to make sure Black people could not vote. Okay. So the 16th Amendment is the Income Tax Amendment in 1913. This gives Congress the power to levy or create an income tax on a direct basis. So now every month you pay money to the government. That's because of the 16th Amendment. All right. So voting rights and elections. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 amendments about voting rights. Okay. The 17th Amendment created the ability for voters to elect their senators directly. Before, governors chose the senator. The idea was senators protect the rights of states, so governors should choose them. By 1913, that idea became old and it was no longer about states' rights. It gave Americans a greater voice in their government. So now Americans could vote for their senators. Okay. So we kind of talked about this one last week. Um, which was national prohibition in 1919. So this prohibits making, drinking, or selling any alcoholic beverage. So that's beer, wine, or liquor. Okay. Prohibition was hard to enforce in states, especially with large urban areas. So it was very hard in New York City and Boston and Chicago. But the 21st Amendment changed that. We decided um, we're going to go back to drinking because Americans never listened to the law and it became almost impossible to do. Okay. So then the 19th Amendment, which is 100 years now, gave women the right to vote in all elections, both national and state. Okay, so this was the first time women were allowed to vote. Okay. As a result, women were brought into the political system and were finally granted full citizenship alongside men. So before 1920, women were not full citizens in the US. And getting the 19th Amendment was very hard. I might put a movie on Google Classroom so you can watch about uh, Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton. You can see how hard people fought to get the right to vote. It's a very interesting movie. I love to uh, watch it. So, the 20th Amendment, what we call the lame duck amendment. This changes the dates of congressional and presidential terms. So now um, you have inauguration date for the president on January 20th, and the first session of Congress is January 3rd. Before that, um, there was no, um, there just wasn't a set time for when to start Congress or the presidency, which made things very difficult for many years. This also creates the rule that if the president elect dies before taking office, the vice president elect becomes president. Um, this was needed at the time um, because I believe we did have a president who died before he got into office or very soon after he got into office. So, usually, when these situations happen, they create a law to address an impossible situation that may happen. All right. The 21st Amendment, we kind of talked about that. This is the repeal of prohibition. It nullified the 18th Amendment. It's the only amendment ever passed to overturn an earlier amendment. So the 21st is the one and only. No other amendment like it. All right. The 22nd Amendment was the amendment that says no president may serve more than 2 terms. And there's a specific reason for this because a president, FDR, was elected to 4 terms. And many people in Congress were not happy with that because 4 terms is 16 years.
The longest.
It's very long. And they were afraid that he would keep going. And they said, no, we got to stop this. So now the law says, and it's the Constitution says, only 2 terms.
Term.
Okay. And then anyone who succeeds to the presidency, so this is when president dies and VP becomes the president. If he's there for more than 2 years, he can only be elected one more time. So, for example, if Donald Trump were to pass away and Mike Pence became president, he
Yes.
can run 2 more times.
2
Unless
term.
he can go for 2 terms.
This is a good idea.
Yep.
Yes.
But if Donald Trump dies in a year and a half, so let's say he's president again and it's 2022 in March and Donald Trump passes away, well, that would be more than 2 years. So Pence can only do 1 more term.
Only one more term.
So this is a way to protect it's to make sure that we don't have one person in office for more than 8 years. So, next, the 23rd Amendment is voting in the District of Columbia, D.C. So, in 1961, people who live in D.C. were given the right to vote for president and vice president for the first time. Before that, if you lived in Washington, D.C., you could not vote. Okay. The 24th Amendment in 1964 made poll taxes illegal in national elections. So, this was one of the ways they stopped African American citizens from voting. And 2 years after, in 1966, they made it illegal in state elections as well. So now they can't make you pay to vote. So next, the 25th Amendment. Now, if you've been watching the news for the past week, people have talked about the 25th Amendment a lot. Because for about a week, Trump seemed a little sick. And they were wondering, do we have to um, uh, decide if the president should be told to leave? Let me see if no, it doesn't. So I have to explain this. So, first thing it does, it establishes the succession to the presidency, which goes like this. The first person is the vice president. That's easy. The second person is the speaker of the house.
Nancy Pelosi.
Very good. The third person, now this one you might not know, is called the senator pro tempore. This is not Mitch McConnell. This is the who is basically the president of the Senate. And the current Senate pro tempore is Chuck Grassley.
No.
So this person is the oldest, one of the oldest people in Congress. So whoever's the oldest, they have a little vote and they choose the senator pro tempore, the president of the Senate. After 4 through 18 is the cabinet of the executive branch. And we'll talk about what the cabinet is when we do the executive branch. So there are 18 people in case the president dies, the vice president dies, the speaker dies, the senator pro tempore dies. There are 18 possible choices for who can become president next. And there is one day every year. There's one day each year. All 17 minus 1 are in one room. And that is the Um, um, State of the Union. So during the State of the Union, everyone but one person is in Congress. The reason why one person doesn't go is they are called the designated survivor. The designated survivor. The idea for this is if in the worst possible case scenario, if a bomb were to explode in the House of Representatives during the State of the Union, there will be one person who survives who could become president. This is something that came up during the Cold War when it was possible that Russia could send an atomic bomb. So what they do is one person they send very far away to make sure that that person is safe in case the worst possible thing happens. Next, it says if the vice president becomes president if the current president dies, resigns, or is removed by impeachment from office. It also says the president is to appoint a new vice president in case of a vacancy. So if the vice president dies, the president must appoint a new one. And what is not written here that has become very important in the last 2 weeks is there are two more parts of this amendment that people don't normally talk about because until basically 2 weeks ago, it wasn't needed. It's the vice president and majority of cabinet can vote that the president is not fit for office. So last week, when Trump was kind of looking a little crazy, people started talking about this part of the 25th Amendment. The vice president and cabinet could meet, decide that Trump is no longer fit to be president, and they can kick him out of the office.
Yes.
The next part, the even rarer part that we just started talking about on Friday was Congress may appoint a commission to decide if the president is not fit for office. So this one is almost never talked about. Since 1967, no one has talked about this last part of the amendment. But last Friday, Congress decided they were going to create a commission that in case the president gets sick, or it goes crazy, they can kick him out of office and give it to the vice president. And this was all because the president got COVID.
Yeah. But he not change over in a vice president, right?
So we have not used this. No president has had the 25th Amendment, specifically these two provisions, invoked yet.
The teacher have more information now. The president negative to COVID-19.
That's what they say. Some people don't believe it. Because we weren't getting all the information to start with. It's really hard to know if that's true. And that's actually not a good thing. It's not good to not know if the president is actually sick. So, the 25th Amendment, one of the ones that we just started talking about again. So, this one was very big the last week. So, it was actually interesting because we never, ever, ever talk about these last two parts. All right, the 26th Amendment. So, in 1971, it lowered the minimum voting age to 18 for all national, state, and local elections. So, why? Why did we lower it to 18? Well, the context or the reason this happened was in the 60s, there was the Vietnam War. And the war in the US was not popular. People did not like the Vietnam War. They said we should not go there. It's not right. People shouldn't be dying. It was a big issue. And one of the big issues was 18-year-olds, they said, why can we be forced to go to Vietnam and die, but we can't vote? So, because young people did not want to go to Vietnam, but they had no right to vote to get people in office who would stop the war. So they said, you can't send me to war and not allow me to vote. That's not fair. So, after a few years, this 26th Amendment came in, which allowed those 18-year-olds to vote and get their say in government. The 27th Amendment, which is from 1992, the most recent of our amendments, it says any increase in the salary, the pay of members of Congress will take an effect in the subsequent session of Congress. So, if Congress votes, they must wait till after election day and the first day of session to get that money. So this was a way to prevent people from voting for raises and getting them immediately. So it stopped Congress from trying to get more money and then not doing anything else. And it also allows you, if you don't like that they voted on that, you can vote for someone else and get them out. And then they won't get that money. So we're going to take a quick 5-minute break because we just finished the amendments. And let me put on the timer. All right. So,
Okay. Richard.
yes. Okay, quick 5 minutes.
Yes. And teacher,
Yes.
I know information in you say 1971.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people over here don't want a young man go in the army in
Mm-hmm.
the Vietnam War.
Yep.
Yeah, but not Vietnam. They fight the South Vietnam.
Yes.
And American don't support and South Vietnam people, they surrender. What do you say? This is the word surrender.
The,
And the North Korea, the North Vietnam, take South Vietnam. A
mhm.
lot of people, immigration
Yep.
come in the United States.
Yep. That
Yes.
was. So for many Americans, for Vietnam, um, we learned that the government lied to us about why we must join Vietnam. So
Yes.
it's called the Gulf of Tonkin incident. And the government, the president said that Vietnam, I believe it was North Vietnam, attacked an American ship. But we learned that that never happened. So many Americans felt like they were sent to war on a lie. And once people feel that way, oh, you can't get them to change their mind now. They're very angry.
Yes. I'm sorry. I'm a view you the time break.
No, okay.
Yeah, you go.
I have to find the next part for the lesson.
Yes.
Let's see.
Mhm.
Hi, Hi Yên.
Ai nói tiếng Việt đi chị, không có thầy à. Thầy có thầy à chưa? Wow. Tưởng không có. Nói đi chị, nói đi không sao đâu. Thầy không nghe đâu.
Đâu có anh, thầy nghe chứ thầy don't understand.
Which part?
We speak a language Vietnamese and
Mhm.
you can't understand.
Nope.
Yes. But teacher, you know, in my house close in high school, Melanie.
Oh,
Yeah, my house close in Melanie High
more.
School. Yes,
Oh, nice.
yes.
Let's see.
And you don't take break?
Um, I have to prepare for the next
Yes.
part of the lesson. So, let me just double check. Oh, one thing we didn't do was look at the news, which is what we do every day, every class. All right.
You busy work and work hard.
it is it is a hard work job.
Yes.
So I'm gonna do this. So what we what's in the news today um is we had the second day of hearings for the Supreme Court nominee.
Yes. Yeah.
Um Democrats are very angry
Yes.
because and so the history is when Obama was in his uh last year of office, uh, Justice Scalia passed away,
Yes.
but um, Obama nominated someone, and for 150 days, they decided not to, um, basically, not to have any hearings at all. So that is what makes them angry is that they're having a hearing after I see 1, 2, 3, like
Mm.
14 days after the last justice passed away. So, um, that's what's making Democrats angry. It's becoming a political fight. Like everything's a political fight now.
Yes.
And because it's also right before an election, everyone is trying to look good to their voters. So, like I said, it's just politics. People putting on a show to make their people happy. um,
And she very young and she good job.
she is young. Oh goodness, how old is she?
48,
She's still a mom. She's got 7 children.
but adopted.
Yeah, 48.
Yeah.
She's got let's see. I'll have to look up her story later. I haven't actually looked up much of her story because everything's so busy.
Yes.
So, other big news, and this was big news today, right? Nope, not this one. No, this is actually just big news from 15 minutes ago.
Census.
So the census, the Constitution says that every 10 years they must count every single person in the United States.
Yes.
Um, for some reason, the Trump administration wanted to end it early, um, which is strange. Doesn't make sense. So the Supreme Court has decided that they can stop the election, not the election, sorry, the count. And they're saying that there's like some issues with this census, which hasn't happened. Well, not that I could remember, but Congress requires the Census Bureau to finish the numbers by December 31st. Normally, um, well, if they went to December 31st, counting people, they would never meet the deadline. So, um, what happens is were arguing about this. How many? Let me see if I could find the number. I can't see the decision. So, some people think because of coronavirus and because of, well, that's the major one, coronavirus, that the numbers will not be correct. So people are worried about that. Another big news from today was this one. So there was a safety issue that caused a COVID-19 antibody study to pause. A man, um, where is it? I think in Pennsylvania, suddenly got very sick after taking the medicine. And because of that, they need to stop and find out what happened, see if it's the medicine that made him sick. Because if he gets sick, that means other people could get sick too. And that's not good. So, this is not the vaccine. This is um, the medicine to take care of coronavirus. Now, this is a day after the study for the vaccine was paused because one person got sick as well. So, the medicine for coronavirus and the vaccine for coronavirus are both paused now, which is not, it's not good. So, they have to take a look, see what's happening, and hopefully make things better. Hopefully, it was, well, they hope that it wasn't the medicine that made him sick. And if it was the medicine that made him sick, they have to figure out why. Is it because of the way the medicine worked with his body? Or is it the way the medicine was made? Was it made badly? So these are some questions I have to figure out this week. And any other big news? Nope. Those were the big newses. So we're gonna watch checks, balances. We're gonna watch a video about checks and balances.
This is three.
Let me Put on English. Make it big.
The people. This is what are the word with the people.
Yep, this is the first part of the Constitution.
Yes.
We the people. So they're talking about the checks and checks and balances.
Let's
Um, so let's continue watching. Let me make it a little slower. Just a tiny bit slower.
Joe Biden. Listen to Congress. Executive as cabinet this appointment in making decision within set up street. Let's go. Executive leader of the organization on that cabinet is a lot of work. In fact, the executive to get ready to the brand of the and this receipt of various reports settled that it's no so legislative, judicial, executive, Congress, Supreme Court, the president.
So that was kind of what we talked about at the first part of our presentation last week, that each part of government holds power over the other parts. So let me pull up. I used to have a nice picture for it and I lost it. So here's a good picture of the checks and balances. Let me open a new tab. And let me open this in a new tab. So as you can see here, you can see the legislative branch, Congress, the executive branch, the president, and the judicial branch, the Supreme Court, courts of appeal, and district courts. Now, each arrow that points to it is the power that the other side has on the arrow side. So the Senate confirms the president's nominations. Congress can impeach judges and remove them from office. And when it comes to impeachment, Congress has actually impeached a lot of judges. They've impeached, I believe, 23 judges, but only 3 presidents. Okay, so the power the court has over Congress is the court can declare any laws unconstitutional. They can say the laws that are made in Congress are wrong, and they could say very quickly that, nope, no one has to follow that law anymore. Then you have the executive branch and the legislative branch. So Congress approves presidential nominations and controls the budget. So the president spends the money, but Congress approves the money. So when we're talking about like coronavirus and the money that they want to send to people, checks of
Yes.
$1,200,
Yes.
Congress must approve it first, and then the president sends it. It can pass laws over the president's veto. So when Congress passes a law, they send it to the president to sign it. The president can veto that legislation and say, nope, I don't like this, and send it back. Congress can then vote over the president's veto, but they need to get a lot more people to agree to it in what's called a veto-proof majority. Okay. Congress can impeach the president and remove him or her from office. And we saw that in January when they impeached Donald Trump.
Yeah.
They did not succeed. Trump is still the president, but
Yes.
that did actually happen. Okay. Next, with the executive branch and judicial branch, the president nominates the judges that go here. But the court can declare a presidential act unconstitutional. So the court can say, nope, you're wrong. So these are the powers that the 3 branches have over each other. So what we're going to do now is we talked about the Constitution, and now we're going to go into each branch of government. We only have 30 more minutes, so we're going to start by looking at Congress. And that's actually a very nice picture.
Wow, beautiful.
Very nice picture of Congress.
Yes.
So, if you look to the right, or I believe it's the left. So here is the House of Representatives. Here, oops, here is the Senate.
In side right.
So, House of Representatives and the Senate on each side. The middle has a lot of art. So, pictures of presidents, statues. This statue up here, they have a small one down here inside the Congress. Inside, you also have the old Supreme Court, which is not used. And you have all the committee rooms. So, other than
the tab,
yeah, I don't know why this is not allowing me to erase that. So, this whole area right here is all the beautiful part of Congress. You can actually go in there and visit it. You are allowed to walk in there and look at the art. It's very beautiful. So, we're going to start with a bicameral Congress. Like a room with a partition, Congress is made up of two houses. There are 3 reasons for this. The first is it's historical. British Parliament has it. There's the House of Commons. Interesting. I don't know why that's written there. So there's the House of Commons and the House of Lords. So, because of that, the Americans said, that's a good idea. Why don't we have the same thing? It's practical. It helped resolve a dispute, a fight. Ooh, purple's very hard to read. Let me change it to red. So it helped resolve a fight between large and small states. So they said, small states said, the House of Representatives will not have our best interests. So they're saying, sorry, it's automatically playing. And then the large state says the HOR, the House of Representatives, is good for us. So it helped make both large and small states happy. And then theoretically, which means on paper or in your mind, it makes sense because of checks and balances. If you want to make sure that the House of Representatives is acting in the best behavior, you need to have another house to make sure the other house is being good. So it's a check and balance inside Congress to make sure that they're being playing fairly. So, the powers of Congress. And this is one of the pictures from inside Congress. Very beautiful. There are 3 types of powers. You have the expressed powers, which is Article 1, Section 8, powers that are stated in the Constitution, that are written out very clearly. You have the implied powers. These are not stated, but they're drawn. So they're connected to what is written in the Constitution, but it wasn't clearly said. And then finally, so for example, to regulate commerce, set minimum wage, these are some ideas. And then there's the inherent powers. So these are powers that belong to all sovereign nations. All countries have these powers. For example, to control the borders. So these are the 3 types of power that Congress has. Your expressed, your implied, and your inherent. Okay, so here's a picture of the United States Senate. So you can see it's different. It's smaller. There's only 100 people. There's 2 senators for every state. And they get their own desk. And this desk, is it this one or that one? One of these desks is known as the candy desk, where they bring candy. So each senator is elected for 6 years. What are the qualifications to be a senator? You have to be 30 years old. You have to be a citizen for the last 9 years. And you must live in the state you wish to run in. So, not a very strict rule of who can become a senator. Now, you might be wondering, what's this up here? This is a place where you can go and watch. If you want to watch Congress, you can go and sit up there. Or you can watch it on TV. There's C-SPAN. It's a channel for Congress. C-SPAN. So, the powers of the Senate. The Senate tries impeachment cases brought by the House. So when Trump was impeached in January, the trial happened in the Senate. It votes on all bills and legislatives sent up from the House. More often than not, it amends or adds such bills before passage, requiring a return to the House, which either votes for the amended bill or continues to revise it. So you're going to start slowly seeing that to become a law, it takes actually a long time. So, the Senate leadership. Now, we kind of talked about the Senate leadership before when we talked about succession. But the vice president is officially the president of the Senate. He is the one who's supposed to be there. But most vice presidents never go, because it's a non-voting position, except when there is a 50-50 tie. Then the vice president votes to break that tie. So, paradoxically, which means both the least and the most important person. So, he is the least important person when it's regular everyday work. But when there's a tie, a 50-50, he is the most important person. All right. So the other leader you've heard about are the majority and minority leaders. This is where the true power is in the Senate. They are elected by the Senate members of their party. So right now, the majority leader is Mitch McConnell. The minority leader is Chuck Schumer. They are the most visible members of the Senate. They are the ones that have the power. They often work with the Speaker of the House, who is Nancy Pelosi, and the President, who is Donald Trump. So you often hear about McConnell working with Trump, and you hear about Schumer working with Pelosi. Why do they work together? Well, this is the GOP, the Republican side, and this is the Democrat side. So they typically work together to come up with plans on how to deal with things. The next important person is the majority and minority whips. As the name whip, which is that long thing, they are responsible for party discipline, keeping members in line and generally enforcing proper party behavior. So, if they want a certain bill to pass, and the Democrats really want that to happen, well, the whip will go around to make sure Democrats are voting away. But you don't have to vote the way the whip tells you to. You are an individual, and if your district does not like that plan, you do not have to vote for it. It just means you won't be popular.
Let's go.
So, the next is the Senate, the President pro tempore, or the Senate pro tempore. This is a ceremonial title, but it's also a title that's in the Constitution. So it's granted to the senior member. This means the oldest member of the majority party. So whoever's the oldest member of the Republicans is the Senate pro tempore right now. So, what does the Senate pro tempore do? They're the ones that open and close the Senate every day. If he's not there, technically you can't open. But there are ways to get around this. But the president pro tempore is considered the man who starts and stops things. So, like I said, he's the guy that will sit here when the vice president is unavailable, which is almost every day. The vice president normally never goes to the Senate. Otherwise, he has the same power as every other senator. So he's like not a teacher, but he's the person who controls everyone, makes sure everyone acts nicely. So, the House of Representatives. It's 435 members based on each state's population. This is why the census is important. It tells you how many House of Representatives members you get. So before the next one comes up, see this thing right here? This is called the staff. And the rule is if you don't see that, then you can't go in and work. It's only an official day of work when you see that staff. Okay, so representatives are only elected to 2-year terms. So every election, you vote on a representatives. What are the qualifications to be a representative? Well, unlike the Senate, you only have to be 25. And you only have to be a citizen for the last 7 years. So the Senate was 30 and 9. The idea is that senators are older and wiser, and representatives are younger and hipper. They know what you want. And you must live in the state you wish to run in at the time of the race, which means you can move to New York and then run. That's okay. People do that. It's not a popular thing to do, but people do it. So, the powers of the House of Representatives. They introduce legislation, and if passed, it moves on to the Senate for approval. It originates revenue raising measures, which means all bills about money must start here.
Right.
Okay. The power of the House has the sole power of impeachment with trial. Okay. So the House of Representatives decides, are you going to impeach the president or a judge? And if they decide yes, it then moves to trial in the Senate. Okay. And it approves by 2/3 vote any constitutional amendments prior to state ratification. So before anything could become part of the Constitution, it either goes through the House or it comes up through the states. But the House must vote 2/3. The House leadership. Who's that?
Nancy Pelosi.
Nancy Pelosi. So she is the Speaker of the House. The Speaker of the House is elected by the majority party, the party with the most people in that session of Congress. They preside over the House. They're like the leader, they're the president of the House. They are also the principal leader of the party. As we talked about before, they are third in line in succession. So if the president dies and the vice president dies, the House
Yes, CD
Speaker
president. CD
becomes
president.
they become the president. So she assigns bills to committees. So it's a little different than the Senate. So in the Senate, the leader schedules bills to be talked about. But in the House, any bill that's put into what's called the hopper, and it's a small wood box in front of Nancy Pelosi, she decides which team must look at the bill and make it better. She also assigns membership in the committees. She decides what group you're going to work in. Okay, here's Paul Ryan, the other one from before Pelosi. So the majority leader, the floor leader of the party that holds the majority of seats in Congress. Okay, they carry out decisions of the party caucus. So the majority leader is like the majority leader in the Senate, pretty much the same, except for they are not the speaker. They steer floor action to their party's benefit. So if the party agrees that this is what they want to do, the majority leader helps push people to do that. He or she is the chief spokesman for their party in the chamber. So, typically the majority leader and the speaker are the same person, but sometimes they're not. So they are considered the most powerful person in the House because they have more votes. They can make things happen if they want to. Then you have the minority leader. This is the leader of the party that holds the smallest amount of seats in the House. They work with their party caucuses to carry out decisions, and they steer floor action to their party's benefit. So, just like the majority leader, they're making sure their party is doing what they typically want. Again, this is the chief spokesman for their party in the chamber. So when the news comes and they want to talk to someone, they usually talk to the leaders. Then, like before, we have the whips. Same thing. They work in the House to make sure that the party is working in their best interest. And we're going to stop right here. Let me actually do that. I'm going to keep. So, when we meet next week, we're going to talk more about Congress, and we're also going to talk about how bills become laws, which is one of the hardest parts about Congress because it is very confusing. And you'll see why it takes actually a long time for laws to be made. So that is all for this week. I'm gonna post the study for the immigration exam. I'll look for some immigration interview tips and questions that they might ask. And I'm going to look for a small activity about the House of Representatives.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I hope you guys have a good weekend. It's getting cold. Stay warm.
You too.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you too, teacher.
You,
Have a
you
good
work hard. You work hard, and you must take care of yourself.
Thank you.
Yes.
Have a great
Yeah.
night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good night.
Good
Good
night,
night.
teacher.
Good
Good night,
night.
Ian.
Good
Bye
night, Sue.
bye. Bye chú.
Bye. Miss you.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good night.
I sing miss you too.
Bye, see you.
Good night.
Good night. Bye, every guy.
Good
Everybody.
night.